Good evening, and this is Priscilla Baldwin with Life Care Companions of Northwest Florida, and our mission is to provide innovative ideas and concepts to Northwest Florida. And our lovely guest this evening is Miss Wren, which is also Miss Aarin Nedd. We are so happy to have you. We are thankful that you agreed to do the executive functioning part 2. So if you could give us an introduction of who you are and what you do, we'd appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. Well, it is Wren, but it's also Miss Priscilla. It's Aarin Nedd. Nancy
Okay.
Nedd. Yes, ma'am.
Nedd.
But yes, ma'am. I am a high school reading teacher at Achieve Academy here in Pensacola, Florida. I've been a teacher there for about 3 years now. I also own a Temple massage and wellness studio here in Pensacola, Florida. It's a massage studio. I am a licensed massage therapist as well. And yeah, I have born and raised here in Pensacola, Florida. I work with children pretty much all my career of being able to work since I've been out of college. I did 10 years with the Department of Children and Families. Following the Department of Children and Families, I was, while there, I was a child protective investigator and a senior child protective investigator as well. Following that, I became a forensic interviewer for the child protection team at Arnold Palmer Hospital in Orlando, Florida. So I worked side by side with the police department there, worked very closely with the child protection team or the child protective investigators, rather there, as well as lots of doctors and lawyers and counselors and law enforcement officers. So yeah, so that's been pretty much my life. I went to University of Central Florida. I graduated with a degree in criminal justice and crime scene investigation, and I just been doing my thing, Miss Priscilla. Just been doing my thing.
Been very busy, very busy.
Very busy, yes, ma'am.
So for the executive functioning and you as being a reading teacher, how does that affect your students?
Well, it is reading. So we need you to be able to focus and we need you to be able to start. And if you lack those executive functioning skills that allow you to start a process or to allow you to start something, then it'll be difficult for you to begin the task of reading. And then while reading, you have to stay on task, you have to stay focused. And one example rather, or symptom, if you will, of poor executive functioning is your lack of being able to focus. And also your inability to be able to start, to begin something or to even start a task. So if we're battling your ability to start and then your ability to stay started, you know what I mean? We've kind of, we've lost that battle already. So we already have those two things combating, against us at the beginning. So those are those barriers that we would have to work through first in order for us to get to the hump or over that hump of the lack of being able to get started, and then being able to stay focused once we get started.
Okay. So how many children do you have in your reading class? Or what's the age group?
Well, the age group is high school. So I have children anywhere from the age of about maybe 15 to about 17, 18 years old. Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am. Okay.
So with them starting the task and staying on task, is there at any time with the frustration? Is there any?
Yeah, frustration, especially from them, because their reasoning for not starting or their reasoning for not being on task may be because they lack the ability to read. So that's another thing that we have that's another barrier rather that we would need to get through first. Are you able to do this? Are you just being defiant, or are you not wanting to do it because you're not capable of doing it? And you don't want to let myself or your classmates know that you're not. And that could be frustrating definitely to some students, especially I realize if I'm doing popcorn reading in class, if someone doesn't want to read or if they're frustrated that I called on them,
Mhm.
you know, I have to keep in mind, okay, well, it's not me. You know, maybe it's either that maybe they're having a bad day and maybe they just don't know how to do it. Maybe they're just not capable of doing it. So they're frustrated by it. Or if they read something and they're frustrated about what they've learned or what they've read because they don't understand it. So those are more things that we have to kind of break through. But that's where my reading teacher mind comes into play. And I'm like, okay, well, let's find some context clues so you won't get so frustrated on not knowing or not understanding what you've read. Based on what the author or the person that has written this passage is saying, based on this information, what do you think this word means? Let's look at all these words around this one word that you don't understand. What do you think this word is based on the information around it?
So,
So it can definitely be frustrating for those students.
so with the technique that you just explained, does that help facilitate some of the issues that you have in your classroom?
Yes, it definitely helps. I've learned that if they understand what it is that they're reading, they have a better attitude about it. You know, even though they might not want to read it, as long as they understand what's going on, they have a better attitude because they understand it. You know what I mean? Now they might be frustrated because they don't feel like doing work or they don't want to do the work. Again, those are those other executive functionings, that emotional control or the task, you know what I mean, initiation that they might lack, you know what I mean? But to answer the question, it helps them, it gives them a task. So they don't have to initiate the task themselves. They're provided directions on what to look for and what to do. So since we're going to look for these context clues, they know exactly, okay, well, let me look around, you know, these words and see what this word might mean. And you also have to know your audience. And I say audience, you have to know your population. You have to know your group of kids or the demographics that you're working with. And a lot of times, some of my kids are better at verbalizing their answer to me than they are at writing down their answer to me. And I know which one of my kids are better at telling me the answer than conveying it through writing it down. So that's another way I kind of can break those barriers of that executive functioning down. What is your capability? So let's work with that, you know what I'm saying, first, and you know, go from there.
Okay. So for some of your students, they're more high achievers than
Yes.
than some.
Yes, ma'am. There's a lot of differentiating learning going on in the classroom because you have children at different levels of learning in the classroom at one time. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So if you had to expound on the 12, we're just going to deal with the 12 executive functions. Which ones in your classroom would be the ones that you would expound on and that you would want others to really just look at what it is, what it entails, and how we use it in an everyday living situation?
Yes, ma'am. Well, one of the main ones, the 12 that we talked about,
Mhm.
definitely the flexible thinking. I wanted to expound on that one first. Because it is a reading class, you're expected to comprehend. You know what I mean? So you're expected to think and you're expected to assess and analyze different situations or different reading passages or articles or like one time we did a lesson on analyzing videos. Like we did Michael Jackson's Man in the Mirror. So you have to have some flexible thinking going on here to understand, you know, what do these lyrics mean? What does he mean by I'm talking to the man in the mirror? I'm asking him to change his ways. Well, who is the man in the mirror? How can you change your ways? Like, you know what I mean? So those are the flexible thinking skills that you need to have in order to analyze or assess anything. And although it was just the Michael Jackson Man in the Mirror song, we need those skills to assess life. decisions that we make, paying a bill, even making a decision on where to buy a house. The house sits on a hill, the house sits downhill. Do I need to worry about rain? If it's raining, it's gonna, my yard is gonna flood because I'm sitting downhill. You know what I mean? Those types of flexible thinking skills, you know, I see that they could possibly, we could expound upon, you know, in the classroom, so they'll know it's more than one way to skin a cat, essentially. You understand what I mean?
Right.
Another one, it's just self-control. I mean, we're in a time where a lot of things are, you know, it's a popcorn generation, essentially. So everything is like fast, and, you know, sitting still sometimes is just the hardest thing to do for some of these kids. It's the hardest thing to do for some of us adults at times. But you have to have that self-control to sit still, listen. But I also have to remember, we also have to remember that sometimes come with age and maturity. And, you know, if there is any issues with, you know, attention deficit disorder or hyperactivity disorders, so that could play, those, you know, factors can definitely play a role in someone's ability to have self-control or lack self-control. Definitely some emotional control, but focus, task initiation, and time management. I mean, they're kids, you know, time management, they're on their phones a lot. So time goes by so quickly, and they don't even realize that time has gone by that fast. You know what I mean? They can scroll and get into a zone or twilight zone, just scrolling on the phone, just being on the phone, and don't realize that they've been on the phone for 3 hours. And now they haven't done homework, or now they haven't done the things that they need to do to become successful or to get ahead.
Okay. So what about multitasking? Do your children, are they able to multitask, or some can multitask and some has to do one task at a time? Are you finding that?
Yes. I find some of them can multitask. However, considering the population, again, that I teach, the multitasking definitely has to be managed, if that makes sense. They can multitask, but it has to be managed. Usually what works best with my group of kids is one task at a time. So if I put them in a group, they may have the same goal, but each one of them have a different task to get to that goal.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
So, but multitasking, I believe that they probably could do it. However, with the demographic of kids that I have, not all of them at one time. But again, that deals with those factors affecting that level of their executive function.
Okay. And earlier we were talking about the working memory. Did you want to expound on that as well?
Yes, the working memory. So my kids hate when I have them do this, but everybody remembers things differently. However, I've learned that writing things down helps with the working memory. A lot of times we have those, sometimes we start washing dishes and then we stop washing dishes and go put the clothes in the dryer. And then we're like, okay, well, what was I doing before I started washing dishes? Clothes in the dryer. And it's like, oh yeah, I was washing dishes. Oh, well, the trash needs to be taken out. So we get all over the place and we're not necessarily focusing to memorize anything. But with reading, especially, I have them watch a lot of TED Talks. So I have them take notes, and I find that note taking helps them memorize things a little bit more. When I'm just talking to them and they're listening to me, they might retain the information, but if I ask them the next day, they're like, but if I have them write it down and I'm like, okay, who can tell me what was said about social media and the way it affects teens? they all can, raise their hands because they've written it down. And so they pretty much inscribed it on paper, but also on their brain. So that working memory, I literally have to work with them to hone in on that skill of the working memory. Because they can remember. I mean, they remember all these rap lyrics, they remember all these songs. You know what I mean? They can do it. You know what I mean? They don't, at that time, they don't realize that they're doing it because it's being programmed. Okay, so let's program it. Let's rewrite it, and then we're gonna wire it within our brains so we can at least attain or retain some of the information.
Okay. And earlier you were talking about how some of the students have the impulse control issue. Do you think that sometimes with them diverting from the task and maybe one of the other students realize that this person can't read or this person can't do that task, do you think that could cause low self-esteem in that individual?
Oh, it definitely can cause some low self-esteem. I definitely believe that. I definitely believe that that's a lot of the reason why sometimes there's pushback in the classroom. And it's not always because they're bad kids. And I put some strong quotes around the word bad.
Right.
But they're not necessarily bad kids. They're just kids who don't understand the lesson, or I don't understand how to read very much like my pupils or my counterparts. So I'm going to be the one to disrupt the class because I don't know how to do it. And if we start, 9 out of 10, the teacher probably going to call on me. So I'm going to do everything in my power to not have that happen. So I'm going to sit here and I'm going to be a disruption in class, or I'm going to put my head down. I'm not going to participate, and I'm going to say screw my behavior and participation points because I don't know how to do it. So it's pretty much what we call it is self-sabotage. We're self-sabotaging ourselves because we don't have the ability to do it. But that's where it comes in as a teacher. Okay, let's go in one-on-one with this kid. Let me call him probably in on my planning period, get back with him and see what his capabilities are. Maybe look at his IEP if he has one. Those types of things, because a lot of that stuff can be found in the paperwork or in their IEPs that you may have, you're privy, whatever information that you're privy to on those types of things. But I think, classroom disruption has a lot to do with if they can do the work, if they are going to be embarrassed, if they can't, how are the other kids going to feel about them? Should they remain the class clown and just be cool for being the class clown rather than being known for the person who don't know how to do it?
Right. So, is there any other executive functioning? And while we're speaking about executive functionings, I think a lot of people hear the word, but don't associate that it's everyday living. You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
it's like, it's okay, what is that? But it's our everyday living to do these things, whether it's to have a to-do list, which I really hate to do. I'm just being honest, but I need to do the to-do list. But the other thing is time management, because a lot of times there are some people that needs to have the planner so that the appointments don't overlap, so that they're not excessively late for whatever needs to be done.
Right.
We just need that extra push in that direction. So it's not just based on one individual, it's a lot of us. That's why they made planners so that we could,
exactly. That's why bullet journals, there's everything. Do you know how much planners cost today, Miss Priscilla?
Right.
They making a whole lot of money off planners for them folks.
For planners, right? And that's just everyday things.
Yes, ma'am.
I've found that some people with a to-do list, they usually have like a visual board. And some people are visual learners, whether they put the the appointments on the charts so that they can be able to visually see it and know, oh, okay, today's the 16th and this is what we're doing. Some people need that, the planner may not work for everybody because some people are visual learners, they have to see it in order to make the connection of this is what we're doing,
Yes, ma'am.
So everybody's on a different level, even if we're doing things different. Like you said, that you have certain ones doing different tasks, certain ones are going towards that goal, and it may take someone else a roundabout way to get to the goal, but the goal is for you to get to the goal. Everybody may not arrive at the same time, but as long as you get
or in the same capacity,
right?
You might have got there by boat, and I took me a plane.
Right.
So we both got there.
As long as we got there, yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
so for, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I was just going to expound on the time management.
Okay.
Because that's definitely a good one, because since I am high school, our classes are broken up into periods, so they only have a short window, to get this done, to get these tasks done that they're asked about. So it's that time, of course you have those ones in there who lack poor time management skills. They'll rather sit and look at me than to sit what they supposed to be doing, or they'll rather sit and talk to each other and or doodle, or just not do it. But then again, we have to go back to those, are you not understanding? Why aren't you doing the work? Why aren't you doing this? Why do you decide to draw Naruto, then write me a paragraph about how you feel about social media, or how you feel about, what 3 wishes you might have. I even find it with testing, when we're starting testing with the FSA or just anything, iReady or MRI and SRI or whatnot, the time management skills there's a rushing to either get it done, and you're not using the time wisely, or you're using the time to kind of lollygag, go to sleep a little bit, wake up, answer a few more questions, go to sleep a little bit, wake up, answer a few more questions. So I can see how time management is definitely one of those things that they struggle with. But I also feel that it's sometimes time management can be learned. A lot of times it can be a learned behavior. It depends on if you see other people managing time wisely, you might kind of, start to adapt that way of life or adapt that lifestyle. So it could go either way, but time management is definitely one of those things that I definitely see in the classroom being used wisely and mostly not being used so wisely.
So do you think that sometimes it's environmental, like at home, the friends that they hang out with, or?
Oh yes, definitely. I'm not, I consider myself, Generation X, but when I was coming up, there used to be a schedule. You had a schedule. It was a time that you ate. It was a time that you were able to go outside and play. It was a time that you had to use to do your homework. It was a time that So coming up for me, it was like, okay, come home, I get a 30-minute, and it was like 23 minutes actually, window to watch Dragon Ball Z. And then after Dragon Ball Z went off, I had this amount of time to get my homework done. And after I got my homework done, I had this amount of time to get my chores done. And then I had this amount of time to kind of be free and play and hang out with my sister and my friends and stuff like that. But there was some time management going on, but it was because of my mom placing those management skills on me. And then when I got to school, Mr. Gully, my Brainbow coach, placing those time management skills. Okay, you got a week to read this book and know it. You have 2 weeks to read these 2 chapters and tell me about what you read, and things of that nature. So I feel like it can start at the home. And if you're not having, if you get to go to bed anytime you want to at home, your time management skills the next day probably going to be a little off.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Nikita Evans on yesterday, she was saying, because the age group that she works with is from 0 to 5, and she stressing how important it is that you maintain or you have a routine with your child.
It's very
And
important.
that goes across the board. If you,
Mhm.
some people that I've worked with, ADHD, autism, it has to be a routine. It
Yes.
has to be a routine. And once that routine is broken, it's like a meltdown. It's like everything is off track and they can't function.
Mhm.
So for them, it has to be the same person on the same day at the same time.
Yep.
And even with the elderly people, the same person on the same day at the same time. If not, then the train goes off the rail and everything else goes sideways.
Right.
You know,
Right.
so you have those people in different groups that it has to be the consistency of what that is. And I think because of technology and the way that the young people are, that there are a lot of things there's not consistency. There's no schedule, there's no routine.
No.
It's we're gonna make it up as we go along. And that's not how life is. You know.
And piggyback off of what you're saying and just think about what you just said. You know, everything has to be a routine. It has to be the same person on this day, has to be the same, you know, thing on this sort of day. It kind of reminds me of, I don't know if you're familiar with this show called The Big Bang Theory, but a character on there, his name was Sheldon. Everything, if Monday night was this type of food, it was Chinese. If it was not Chinese, the night was not right. His night was just messed up. If he didn't get the left side of the couch, there was a problem. So think about these kids who are like this, that are pushed, or not necessarily pushed, but are enrolled in public school settings that don't have these stipulations where they can have a consistent person each day, where they can have a consistent routine each day, because we're so inundated with other things and we're so inundated with all these other students that we have. You know, we just don't have the whole lot of the manpower, not just the school system, that's any place. You know what I mean? These people with these special abilities are everywhere. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
They're all they are employed, they're students, they're moms, they're dads, and those things are important. And you have to think about these things for their sake. You know what I mean?
Right.
For their ability to become successful and to function properly in life. But when you think about what you just said, we have those kids who have the ADHD or who has the autism and they're in school, but they can't get that everyday consistency that they probably should be getting. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that can affect their ability to function in the classroom or in life, period.
Right. So yeah, that would be, I think when I was going to school, it was you wrote down your schedule. And it was like, this is like you were saying, this is first period, this is second period, this is third period. And there was no lollygagging around or whatever, you know. And the fact that they have phones, I don't even think cell phones was around when I was going to high school. I just dated myself, didn't I?
In high school,
no.
They were not.
But
at least I think maybe, I mean, I remember beepers. And kid that I could play Snake on. And I think that was like the latter half of like high school, maybe like June. You know what I mean? When that was coming in. So definitely. So, you know, just think about these kids having to change classes. You know, they have a different person for English, they have a different person for math. And each one of these people have a different personality. You know what I mean? So you have to go into different environments that call classrooms. You know what I mean? And you have to function in each one. So you have to adapt each time you go into a different classroom. So we got to think about how much pressure we're putting on, you know, that is on kids, having to adapt within a 45-minute time frame. And I only get like 5 minutes to go to, you know, probably 3 minutes to go to my locker, get my book bag, go to the bathroom real quick, and then get to my other class by the time the bell rang. So I have to now adjust or assimilate to the environment that I'm in now. So and there are 7 different environments each day because they're going to 7 different classrooms with 7 different teachers who have 7 different personalities. So that could be a lot.
Yeah.
That could be a lot.
That could be a lot. So what would you want us as a community to realize when we're looking or even thinking about executive functioning? That I know that sometimes people function well in a public setting, but sometimes I think about how that individual goes home and what that home setting is, and if those rules and regulations are being put in place so that they would know even if you're taking the trash out, it's still executive functioning. Even if, when I was growing up, we had chores. And sometimes with the population that I did work with, we would have to do, this is step one, this is step two, this is step three. Even if this is the step of taking out the trash, if step one was met and then we skip and the person goes to step three, then we have to start back at step one because it's still a part of the executive functioning, taking out the trash. But what we're really instilling in individuals is that this is how we take care of ourselves. This is how we take care of our home. This is what, this is what we do every day, and it's for independence, for that individual to be able to stand on their own, to be able to, if we're teaching to pay a bill, like you had said, or taking out the trash, or the steps in washing dishes, like, or the steps in making your bed, because some people get up, don't make their beds, and they're out the door,
Right.
But we still have to instill those things because this is how we function as individuals. This is how we have our independence of the ability to take care of ourselves, and these are the traits that we pass on to our children and our children's children. But some people need that extra little help with all of these daily activities,
Well, you're right. I mean, people do need help with those daily activities. What I would like people to know about, or to at least think about when they think about or hear the term executive functioning, like you said, these are our everyday tasks. These are the things that we do every day that we don't even think about doing, even if it's like a routine, like waking up in the morning, making your bed, like you said, then I'm gonna brush my teeth, then I'm gonna make me some breakfast, then I'm gonna get dressed, then I'm gonna go to work, and I'm gonna take this commute to work. And then when I get to work, this is what I'm gonna do. These are all, and that's that working memory, you know what I mean, of it being a daily routine. What I would like for people to know is sometimes, we live in a very judgy society. So it's like, well, why you don't know to do this? Or why you ain't think to, that you were supposed to do X, Y, and Z, but there's a lack in that executive functioning capacity. And it doesn't necessarily have to do with having something such as ADHD or having something such as Alzheimer's or what's the other word I'm looking for?
Dementia?
Not dementia. What is the other one? It starts with the A. Help me out, Miss Priscilla.
You said ADHD. Is it ADD?
Autism.
Autism. Okay.
Autism. Different life factors and life experience can affect your executive functioning. So you don't even have to have those qualities, such as autism or ADHD or anything like that, to have issues with having to have executive functioning issues. Those issues can stem from your childhood. They can stem from how you were raised, the things that you were exposed to, the things that you weren't exposed to, the lack of attention that you were provided or not provided. I think that there's a lot of other factors that go into the way we function in life outside of having something that might block those things. So what I would like for the community to take away is when you hear the word executive functioning, or you see that there may be someone who are experiencing some low or some poor executive functioning, there's usually a deeper cause. So other factors should be looked at to see why that is. You know what I mean? To see why
Mhm.
that is. Definitely other underlying reasons for certain things. And
Yeah, so I think,
they don't always have to be in the brain. It's not always a chemical imbalance.
mhm.
It could be physical. It's an environmental imbalance. You know what I mean? It's a unfair imbalance. It's my life imbalance. It's my situation that's imbalanced that's causing these executive functions. Not me. It's not anything chemically imbalanced. Not all the time, at least. It could just be the situation we're in. You know, and a lot of times it's not textbook. It's not something that we can go to a book and find.
Okay. Well, I thank you for joining us and helping us to educate our community about what are we seeing, to even extend our hand to, like you say, to help an individual out. Maybe the way that I'm doing is not the way that that person has been taught to do
Right.
that task. So
Yes,
we have to look at the whole thing, because I think that everybody thinks that if you were raised that way, everybody else was raised that
everybody
way.
else
And
was. It's
that's
not
not what
true.
that is.
No, it's not true at all. It's not true
Exactly.
at all. And
You
once
know,
we start to understand that and understand the differences of backgrounds and the difference of experiences and have an openness about it. And when I say openness, an open mind, open heart, open ears, you know what I mean? Those barriers can be broken down and we can take the ego out of a lot of things and work with what the spirit, what is actually happening. You know what I mean? Work with the authenticity of the situation and not necessarily what we think, you know, it should be happening or people should function or people should be doing.
yeah. So I think a lot of times we take our perception of something and we make it that's the truth, and that's
Right.
not. It's our perception of what we're looking at, you know.
Exactly.
And I think about sometimes that that adage that two people can see the same thing, but I have my perception of what I saw and you have your perception of what you saw, you know, and the
Yes,
two
ma'am.
may not add up. You know, I didn't see that. It wasn't like that. It was like this, you know, and then somebody else says, no, it wasn't like that. It was like this, you know.
Yes.
So it's
Yes.
your perception and how you see it.
Right. Right. That's the vantage point. That's it's we might have saw the same incident occur. However, I saw this part of the incident and you saw that part of the incident.
Right.
And neither one of them probably had anything to do with each other, but they both occurred
Right.
during the incident. You know what I mean?
Right.
So you're definitely right about that. Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
if you can give us your information again about your wonderful massage studio and
Yes,
leave your
ma'am.
contact number.
Yes, ma'am. So, yes, I am here at Temple Massage Wellness Studio. It's located at 720 North V Street. I am a licensed massage therapist. Rather, we do herbal soap baths here. We do meditations here. We have some yoga classes going on here. Do Swedish massage, deep tissue, prenatal, some lymphatic drainage massage. We have different oils and tinctures and teas here that we sell with my partner, Alignment Tea Company. He's located out of Mississippi. And yeah, we're just here. I've been here for about a year and a half. And drop in, feel free. I am by appointment only. Because I am a school teacher, I work during the evening hours. So I used to take my last appointment at 8 p.m. But I can be contacted via Facebook. If you look for me on Facebook, Temple Massage and Wellness Studio. You can also reach me if you want to make an appointment via my cell phone that is also located on the website. I'll let you do your homework and go on there and find it for yourself. And you can book an appointment that way. I have my services listed. You just book an appointment. I can get back with you and I will see you when you do that.
All righty. And thank you again, Miss Nedd.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much for having me. This was really
Thank
nice.
you.
I really enjoyed myself. Yes,
I
ma'am.
did too. I'm glad that the information is getting out. And we're going to do some more information Zooms for the community so that we can get the information out there, so that we can have more to talk about and that we are being educated on different things.
Yes,
All
ma'am.
right. Thank you so much.
Thank you for what you're doing too, Miss Priscilla, in the community. This is awesome and it's definitely needed. So I really, really appreciate you and what you have going on here.
All right.
Yes,
I'll talk to
ma'am.
you
Well,
soon.
you have a good night. Y'all have a good one.
Okay. Love you.
Love you more.